Hello again, this is CJ Haywire with installment number 3 of the receptacle troubleshooting and replacement video. So we'll start this segment with a little picture of what you'll find before you start your receptacle replacement. If you look inside of a standard outlet box, you'll see two pieces of Romex, as the term is. It's actually called non-metallic sheathed cable, but its brand name caught on from Rome Cable Company, so they called it Romex. Everybody refers to it as Romex these days. Romex is comprised of a jacket, a sleeve jacket, a white wire, a black wire, and a bare copper wire. So what we'll do today for the assembly phase of this is we'll eliminate the outlet box for clarity, and we'll just put the receptacle on these pieces of wire so that you can see how it's done clearly. What you'll need is a new receptacle, so I've selected one of the new modern combination style devices, or if you want something a little stronger, they make a device that looks like this, which is called a specification grade device, and they wire just a little bit differently. With this particular model, if you opt to use a spec grade device, the wires don't have to be bent into a loop like you would with the household grade device. You simply just slide the wire in the hole along the side, and inside of there is a movable plate, which once you torque the screw terminal down, that movable plate comes forward against the wire, and the wire is locked in. Well, there's one thing that you have to pay attention to, and I did that on purpose, is because you can't just stick it in there and hope that it's in the right spot. You have to look and make sure that that movable plate is actually all the way open before you stick the wire in the hole, and then when you tighten the screw down, that movable plate comes up against the wire, and it actually does lock the wire in place so that it does not come out. But the one thing that's important with these, not only the example I just gave you of making sure that the plate is all the way open before you torque the wire, you must make sure that that screw is torqued all the way properly. So it's a good idea, after you've got all 4 of the wires on there, to go through a second time and double check your torque to make sure that those things are locked on completely tightly and they can't just back out. So we'll take that one off for now and go back to our example. So in the picture that you saw when we started the video of the 2 pieces of Romex, we're going to assemble these onto the receptacle. And right now the ends of the wire are still straight like they would have been if they had been connected to a back-wired style receptacle. So we're going to go ahead first and bend a loop into those with a pair of needle nose pliers. They get them prepared for installation onto the device. So you make sure that they're stripped back about 3/4 of an inch, and then you grab the tip with the pliers and bend it into a little loop like this. Do that to all 4 wires, 2 white ones and 2 black ones. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to put them on the receptacle. So we'll start with the white ones. Doesn't matter which of those silver terminals the white ones go on, but they have to be on the silver terminals. If you forget that, if you look at the back of the device, and I'll see if I can get a good shot at this with the camera. There, you can just see it. The word white is written on the back. That will remind you that the white wires go on the side with the silver terminals. So we'll put the wire with the loop facing the way that the terminal goes closed. As you drive the terminal down this way, the loop is bent around in this direction. But before we actually close that screw down on that wire loop, you take your pliers and grab the tip of that wire and pull it shut as much as you can so that that wire is tightly underneath the head of that screw. And then drive the screw down onto the wire and torque it until you can't turn the screw anymore with reasonable force. Then move on to the next one and do the same thing for all 4 of those wires. Put the wire under the screw head, bend the tip of your wire closed under the screw head, and torque the screw terminal down until it stops, and then torque it so you can't turn anymore. Then go to the other side, and then you should have 2 black wires. You may have to turn the loop with your fingers or your pliers so that it faces the correct direction underneath the screw head, and do the same for those 2. Bend the tips closed. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of patience to work with these, but it's well worth it to get them in position correctly. So we have 1 black wire left to put on. And the tip closed. Torque the terminal. Okay, now our line and our neutral wires are connected. But we have these 2 ground wires that are still left. So in the case of one that you're taking apart, chances are part of this is already done for you, because they will have joined these wires together with a wire nut or a crimp terminal of some sort. But in this case, we're going to do something called pigtailing, where we take another little piece of wire, which we have set aside, and since there's only 1 ground terminal, we are going to have to put 1 wire on that. And since you are not allowed to stack wires on a terminal, we have to pigtail. So you take your ground wires that are in the pieces of Romex, and you take the extra piece of wire that you have. You line up the ends so that the ends are all at the same length, and you use a wire nut. You put the wire nut on the 3 ends of the wire, and tighten the wire nut down until you can't tighten it anymore with reasonable amount of force. And then continue to tighten the wire nut and actually twist the wires together somewhat so that they make a little bit of a braid. Then you take the remaining tail of that wire that's going to be your pigtail, and you bend the eye in it just like you did with the other 4 wires, and that eye goes on the ground terminal down there, just like that. Ground terminal is always marked green. It's always separate from the other 4 wires. So then we'll torque that wire just like we did the other 4. And that's what your completed assembly will look like. 2 white wires on the silver screws, 2 black wires on the gold screw, your ground on the grounding terminal with the wires all tied together with a wire nut, And all of this will be inside the outlet box. And then your last step will be to mount the device back into the outlet box using the mounting holes and the screw terminals and the screws provided on your device. So once you get it all back together, then you put your cover plate back on, and you're back to your original installation that will look like that. And once you're all finished with that, it is then safe to turn your circuit breaker back on and test your circuit to make sure your circuit is done correctly. There's two ways to do that. You can use a Receptacle Analyzer, which is a device that looks like this, that gives you 3 lights and a legend that you can read, and the legend tells you whether you've wired it correctly or not. And when you plug the analyzer into the receptacle, the lights will come on, and you then read the legend, and whichever lights are lit will tell you whether it was wired correctly or wired incorrectly, and if it was wired incorrectly, it will tell you what exactly was wrong with it. The other thing you can use is a neon test light that looks like this. It's got a tiny neon lamp in it, 2 wires and 2 probes. And to use that correctly, it's just a matter of sticking those wires into the face of the receptacle, and you should get a light to come on. That will tell you that the receptacle is live. And you can also go from the narrow slot to the ground terminal, and you should also get light that way as well. And that indicates that it was wired correctly. A little bit more to do than using the analyzer, but it does the same thing. So you're checking slot to slot, and you're checking the narrow slot to the ground, and in both cases you should get light. So with that, we'll conclude this video session. Thank you for watching, and if you got some help from this, please click the like, and if you have any questions, please submit those in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. With that, Haywire out. Have a good day.